Sebanyak 233 siasatan dan tangkapan dilakukan di bawah undang-undang yang menyekat kebebasan bersuara sepanjang tahun ini berbanding 108
atau dilaksanakan lagi sekali yang bermaksud bahawa anak-anak muda yang ingin bersuara di dalam dan juga di luar Malaysia akan disekat. Critical thinking akan disekat. Saya agak yakin Senator Sri tahu.
Kerajaan Madani komited dengan prinsip perlembagaan yang menjamin kebebasan bersuara rakyat negara ini.
Malaysia is a democratic country. Under Article 10 of the Federal Constitution, citizens are granted freedom of speech and expression. But today, one important question remains. Is this freedom exist? Why do many Malaysians still hesitate to speak?
Is it fear of criticism, fear of legal consequences, or we are simply learning to be more careful with our words?
To understand this issue, we conducted a survey involving 103 students from University Utara Malaysia.
The results show something interesting. Students were not completely silent, but were not completely confident either.
Hello everyone. Today our group will talk about our research entitled Freedom of Speech and Expression in Malaysia and its impact on society, especially among university students. Freedom of speech is one of the most important fundamental rights in a democratic country. It allows individuals to express their opinions, ideas, beliefs, and concerns without fear of discrimination or punishment. In Malaysia, this right is protected under Article 10 of the Federal Constitution, which gives citizens the right to speak, express opinions, and share information. In today's modern society, freedom of speech has become increasingly important because people can easily communicate and share information through social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. University students in particular actively use these platforms to discuss current issues related to politics, education, economics, and social matters. Through freedom of speech, students are able to exchange ideas, voice concerns, and participate in discussions that may contribute to positive change in society. However, freedom of speech is still considered a sensitive issue in Malaysia. Some people believe that everyone should have the freedom to express opinions openly as long as it does not harm others. On the other hand, some believe that restrictions are necessary to preserve racial harmony, religious sensitivity, and national stability in multicultural country like Malaysia. Furthermore, there are concerns regarding the misuse of freedom of speech, especially on social media. Irresponsible statements, hate speech, cyberbullying, and the spread of fake news may create misunderstanding and conflict within society. It is because on this, freedom of speech must always be balanced with responsibility and ethical communication. Therefore, this study was conducted to examine how freedom of speech influences awareness, democracy, and social relationships among university students. There are three objectives of these studies. First, to examine students' perception of freedom of speech. Second, to identify the impact of freedom of speech on society. And third, to analyze the issues and challenges related to freedom of speech in Malaysia. Through these studies, we hope to better understand how freedom of speech can be practiced responsibly in a diverse society like Malaysia, while still maintaining harmony and respect among different communities.
This study focuses on the perception of 103 University Utara Malaysia students regarding freedom of speech and its impact on society. University students were selected as respondents because they represent the younger generation who are highly exposed to social media, online discussion, and current issues happening in the country. Nowadays, students are not only involved in academic activities but also actively participate in public discussion regarding political, social, economic issues. They often use digital platforms to express opinion, share information, and respond to current events. Therefore, students are considered an important group in understanding how freedom of speech is practiced in modern society. From the demographic perspective, the respondents come from different academic backgrounds, culture, and personal experience. This diversity allows the study to gather different perspectives regarding freedom of speech and its influence on society. In this research, the independent variable is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech refers to the ability of individuals to express their opinion, ideas, and belief freely without excessive restriction. This includes both verbal communication and online expression through digital platform. Meanwhile, the dependent variable is the impact on society. This includes several aspects such as public awareness, democratic participation, openness in discussion, social tolerance, and potential social conflict. The study also examines whether the freedom of speech helps create a more informed and progressive society or whether it may continue to contribute to misunderstandings and tension among communities. The study is important because Malaysia is a multicultural country consisting of different cultures. In such a society, freedom of speech must be practiced carefully to ensure that people can express opinion while still respecting the sensitivities of others. By analyzing the relationship between these variables, the study aimed to understand whether freedom of speech contributes positively to social development, democracy, and awareness, or whether it may also create challenges in maintaining social harmony and unity.
So, for the following statement, although freedom of speech is guaranteed under Article 10 of the Federal Constitution, there are still many debates regarding how far the freedom should be practiced in Malaysia. Some individuals believe that Malaysians should have the right to express opinion, discussing issue-related education, politics, human rights, and social justice. They believe that freedom of speech is necessary in a democratic society because it encourages transparency, accountability, and critical thinking. However, they are also concerned that unrestricted freedom of speech may threaten social harmony, especially in a country with diverse related to racial, religious, or political sensitivities can easily create misunderstanding and tension if they are expressed irresponsibly. In addition, laws such as the Communication and Multimedia Act 1999 and the Sedition Act 1948 are often discussed in relation to freedom of speech. Some people believe that these laws are important to maintain national stability and prevent harmful speech. However, others feel that these laws may limit individuals from expressing opinion freely, especially when criticizing certain issues. So, as a result, some students may feel afraid or hesitant to share their views because they worry about legal consequences, online criticism, or negative reaction from society. This situation may reduce student confidence in participating in healthy public discussion. At the same time, the rapid growth of the social media has made it easier for people to express opinion publicly. Information can spread very quickly within seconds, while that creates opportunities for open discussion. It also increases the risk of the fake news, misinformation, hate speech, and cyberbullying. Therefore, this aims to examine how students perceive freedom of speech and whether it contributes to positive social development or potential social tension in society. The studies also hope to identify the balancing between freedom and responsibility when expressing opinion in Malaysia.
So now we are moving to the first part of data analysis. The first part of data analysis discusses on how freedom of speech contributes to public awareness and democratic development. Based on the survey result, 19.3% of respondents agree that freedom of speech increases public awareness. The verified shows that students believe open discussions and the sharing of opinions help society become more informed about important issues happening around them. So, for example, through social media platforms, news, websites, and public discussions. Students are exposed to information regarding politics, education, economic challenge, environmental issue, and social problems. Freedom of speech allows individuals to exchange ideas, share knowledge, and raise awareness uh, about issues that may affect society. When people are free to express opinions, society becomes more knowledgeable because individuals are encouraged to think critically and understand different perspectives. Their rights and responsibility as a citizens. This awareness is important because it encourages individuals to become more active and concerned about nationality development. In addition, 95.4% of respondents agree that freedom of speech helps develop democracy. This indicates that students understand the importance of expressing opinions in the democratic system. In a democracy, citizens should have the opportunity to question policies, discuss national issues, and provide suggestions for improvement. Freedom of speech also allows people to hold leaders and authorities accountable for their actions. Through constructive criticism and discussions, governments and institutions may better understand public concerns and improve policies for the benefit of society. Furthermore, freedom of speech encourages participation in decision-making process. Students who are confident in expressing opinions are more likely to participate in debates, forums, campaigns, and community activities. This helps strengthen democratic values such as transparency, participation, and equality. Overall, these findings show that freedom of speech plays an important role in creating a society that is more informed, aware, and actively involved in democratic process.
Let me ask you a question. What happens when people stop speaking? What happens when society becomes too afraid to question, discuss, or even share opinions? What we will be aware of what is happening around us? Would democracy still function the same way? This is where freedom of speech become very important to us. Freedom of speech is not just about expressing opinions, it also about awareness. It is about knowing what is happening in society. It is about understanding problems and working together to solve them. Based on our survey findings, slow emphasis 93.3% of respondents agree that freedom of speech increases public awareness. That number is significant. Why? Because it clearly shows that students believe open discussion and the sharing of opinions helps society become more informed. Think about our daily life. Every day we scroll to TikTok, we read Instagram posts, we watch discussion on YouTube, and sometimes we come across issues we never even thought about before. Politics, education, the rising cost of living, environmental concerns, corruption, social injustice. Without freedom of speech, would we even know these problems existed? Probably not. Freedom of speech allows people to exchange ideas, to share experience, to spread awareness, and sometimes to challenge the way society thinks. When people freely express opinions, society becomes more informed. People start thinking critically. They begin understanding different perspectives, and most importantly, they become more aware of their rights and responsibilities. But awareness does not always come easily. Sometimes speaking up can feel uncomfortable, sometimes it can feel risky. This brings us to a real life example.
The University Malaya Association of New Youth, UMANI, has alleged that it and other student groups were prevented from holding an integrity and anti-corruption forum last night. The forum was part of an ongoing roadshow organized by the Tangkap Azambaki Secretariat.
In University Malaya, a group of students attempted to organize an anti-corruption forum. The purpose of the forum was simple: to discuss governance, integrity, and corruption. However, according to the student claims, the forum faced disruption. There were allegations of police interference, flashing lights, and feelings of intimidation. Now, It is important for us to think critically. Some people may see this as a restriction on student voices. Others may argue that authorities were simply maintaining order. And that is why exactly freedom of speech in Malaysia remains a complex issue. Perhaps this helps explain why 41.7% of respondents in our survey remain neutral when asked whether they could simply share political opinions without feeling threatened. Maybe the issue is not whether freedom exists, but whether people feel confident enough to use it. But freedom of speech does not only increases awareness, it also plays an important role in democracy. In our findings, 85.4% of respondents agree that freedom of speech helps develop democracy. This shows something important. Students understand that democracy cannot function in silence. In democratic country, people should be able to question politics, policies, discuss national issues, share ideas, and suggest improvement. Because when people stay silent, mistakes happen and remain unnoticed, problems remain unsolved, and leaders may never fully understand what society truly needs.
And this brings us to another real-life example, one that shows how democratic participation can sometimes become complicated. In this case, a campaign called Emphasis dilarang Ponteng Parlimen.
Ini kita kirakan sebagai kategori protes. Nanti saya akan rampas, saya akan bawa benda ni.
Today is the second day of Dilarang Ponteng Parliament signing session. We have collected comfortably over 700 signatures. We initially wanted to be at Perdana Botanical Gardens, but the park management called the police on us.
Kami akan mengikut arahan, of course. Jadi Encik cakap bahawa kempen Dilarang Ponteng Parlimen adalah satu sesi protes dan bantahan, walaupun kami kata ini bukan. Saya seorang rakyat biasa, seorang rakyat awam yang sedang menggunakan tempat awam untuk mengambil rayuan dari rakyat Malaysia, iaitu satu saluran betul untuk hantar Dewan Rakyat sahaja.
The campaign was collecting signatures from the public. The goal was very simple, to encourage accountability among elective representatives. However, questions soon emerged. Was this simply public participation, or was it considered a protest requiring approval? From the organizer perspective, they believed they were exercising democratic rights. From the authorities' perspective, rules and regulations still mattered. And this raises an important question: how do we balance freedom with responsibility? How do we protect democracy without creating fear? Our survey tells us something very important. Students believe freedom of speech matters. They believe it increases awareness. They believe it strengthens the democracy. But many are still cautious. The real importance of freedom of speech is not simply about talking. It is about creating a society where people feel informed, where people feel involved, and where people feel confident enough to speak responsibly. Because democracy does not grow in silence. It grows when people are brave enough to speak.
So another important finding from the study is related to individual right and awareness of current issues. Based on the data collected, 87.4% of respondents agree that freedom of speech gives people the opportunity to voice their rights. This finding shows that students consider freedom of speech an important tool for protecting individual rights and promoting justice in society. And when individuals are allowed to express concerns and opinion openly, they are able to defend their right and speak against unfair treatment or social injustice. For example, students may voice concerns regarding educational issues, campus facilities, mental health awareness, or student welfare. Through freedom of speech, people can raise important issues that may otherwise be ignored. And then, freedom of speech also empowers marginalized groups to share experience and seek support from society. This can help create a fairer and more inclusive community where everyone has the opportunity to be heard. Additionally, 85.4% of respondents agree that freedom of speech helps them become more aware of current issues. In today's digital era, information spreads very quickly through social media, online news platforms, and public discussion. Students can easily access information regarding national and international development. Through discussions and information sharing, students become more knowledgeable about political issues, economic conditions, environmental problems, and social channels. This exposure helps students develop critical thinking skills and encourage them to analyze issues from different perspectives. Moreover, awareness of current issues helps students become more responsible citizens because they understand what is happening in society and how certain issues may affect the future of the country. Overall, these findings show that freedom of speech is not only important for expressing opinions, but also for increasing knowledge, awareness, and social responsibility among students and society as a whole. The final part of analysis focuses on information dissemination and social change. According to the survey finding, 86.4% of respondents agree that freedom of speech helps in the dissemination of important information. This means that open communication allows information to spread more efficiently and quickly within society. In modern society, people rely heavily on digital communication platforms to obtain information regarding current events, emergencies, educational content, and social issues. Freedom of speech allows individuals, organizations, and media platforms to share useful information with the public. For example, during emergencies or crises, people can spread awareness quickly through online platforms. Students could also exchange academic information, educational resources, and public announcements more effectively. This contributes to a society that is more informed and connected. Furthermore, 79.6% of respondents believe that freedom of speech contributes to social change. This shows that students believe discussion, opinion, and public awareness can influence improvement in society. When people speak openly about problems such as corruption, discrimination, poverty, or environmental issues, society becomes more aware of these challenges. As awareness increases, communities and authorities may take action to solve this problem. Freedom of speech also encourages innovation and progress because people are able to suggest ideas, citizen weakness, and recommend improvement. Many positive social change begin when individuals are brave enough to voice opinion and discuss important issues publicly. However, students also understand that social change should happen responsibly. Opinions should be expressed respectfully and based on accurate information to avoid confusion and unnecessary conflict. Overall, the findings show that students strongly support freedom of speech because it promotes awareness, information sharing, and positive social development. Nevertheless, they also believe that responsibility and ethics are important to ensure that freedom of speech benefits society in a positive way. There are several solutions that can help improve the practice of freedom of speech in Malaysia while maintaining harmony and social stability. First, the government should review existing laws such as the Communication and Multimedia Act 1998 and the Sedition Act 1948. These laws should be clearly explained and improved to ensure that constructive criticism, academic discussion, and responsible public opinion are protected. At the same time, laws should still prevent speech that threaten national security, promote hatred, or create social unrest.
How can young people participate in democracy if they do not feel safe enough to speak? Perhaps the answer is not more punishment, but better system. One possible solution is for Malaysia to strengthen an independent Malaysia Media Council, which is MMC. Instead of immediately relying on police enforcement to disputes involving public opinions or digital content, the MMC could act as a fair and independent space to resolve issue, a place where understanding can be addressed without instantly turning expression into punishment, because when young people constantly fear of punishment, they begin to censor themselves, they stop asking questions, they stop participating, and eventually they stop believing their voice matters. And perhaps this helps explain why many students in our research remain cautious about expressing opinions. Some even question whether laws are applied fairly to everyone. This is why enforcement bodies, especially the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission (MCMC), need a different approach. Instead of immediately punishing youth expression, a rights-based approach should come first. One that prioritizes education, dialogue, guidance, and understandings. Because mistakes made by young people should not always be met with fear. Sometimes they should be met with education. If laws are enforced fairly, consistently, and transparently, young people will begin to trust the system again. They will feel safer sharing ideas, participating in discussion, and contributing to democracy. Because democracy grows stronger not when people stay silent, but when people feel safe enough to speak.
And then, students should be encouraged to think carefully before sharing any information on social media. Before uploading or distributing any content, students should assess the accuracy, validity, and impact of the information. This is important to avoid misunderstandings, the spread of false information, or defamation that can harm individuals or parties. By practicing a responsible attitude when sharing information, students can help create a safer and more ethical online environment.
In addition, healthy and professional communication among students also need to be fostered. Students at University Utara Malaysia should be encouraged to respect the views of others and use freedom of speech in a mature and positive manner. Freedom of speech should be used to share constructive ideas, convey useful information, and hold knowledgeable discussions. When students practice ethical and respectful communication, a harmonious and supportive learning atmosphere can be created in the university community.
So, the first question, should freedom of speech in Malaysia be completely unrestricted to protect democracy, or should it be controlled to maintain social harmony?
To answer the question, freedom of speech is important in a democratic country because it allows citizens to express opinions, criticize policy, and participate in decision making. However, Malaysia is a multicultural society with different races and religions, so uninterrupted speech may lead to sensitive issues such as hate speech or racial conflict. Therefore, freedom of speech should be balanced with responsibility and laws that protect nationality, harmony, and stability.
So for the question 2, why do many students remain neutral or afraid to express their opinion even though freedom of speech is guaranteed in the Malaysian Constitution?
So the answer is, although freedom of speech is protected under Article 10 of the Federal Constitution, many students still fear criticism, online backlash, or legal consequences under laws such as Sedition Act and the Communication and Multimedia Act. In addition, some people in society may not accept different opinions openly, causing the students to feel unsafe or uncomfortable to share their opinion to the viewers publicly.
So next question is, how can social media strengthen democracy while also threatening social harmony?
So, the answer is social media strengthens democracy by allowing people to share information, discuss issues, and raise awareness quickly. It gives citizens a platform to voice opinion and participate in public discussions. However, social media can also spread misinformation, hate speech, and false accusation if users share content irresponsibly. This may create misunderstanding, conflicts, and division within society.
So, question 4. Are laws such as Sedition Act 1948 still relevant in the digital era?
So the answer is, people believe that Sedition Act is still necessary to prevent speech that could threaten national security or racial harmony. However, others argue that the law may limit citizens able to critique the government or discuss sensitivity issues openly. Therefore, the government should review and improve such law to ensure they protect both public safety and democratic freedom fairly. For the last question, how can education and university help ensure that freedom of speech is practiced responsibly?
So the answer is, university plays an important role in developing critical thinking and ethical communication among the students. Through debates, discussion, and digital literacy education, students can learn how to evaluate information critically and respect different opinions. Education also teaches students that freedom of speech is not only a right but also a responsibility to avoid spreading false information or harmful content that may affect social harmony.